So now we're on this third slide, and to make a long story a little shorter, Roxana and Lyman had many children, the most famous of whom was Henry Ward Beecher and Harriet Beecher Stowe. Roxana's youngest brother, George Augustus Foote, also had a house full of children, including Hattie Ward Foote Hawley, George Augustus Foote Jr., and Katie Foote Coe. And before George became of age, his home was headed by his oldest sister, Hattie Foote, and his maternal grandmother, Roxana Ward Foote. By 1810, the Foote family, living in the Ward homestead with Aunt Hattie and Grandma Foote in charge, took in Eli Foote's brother Justin Foote as he was dying from consumption, as we know today as tuberculosis. It is said that he gifted his two enslaved persons he previously held captive in the Hudson River Valley of New York to his niece Hattie Foote, who's mentioned above. Fast forward 6 years, Harriet Beecher is transported by carriage from her home in Litchfield, Connecticut to Nut Plains in Guilford to stay with her maternal aunt and grandmother Foote at the death of her mother, also of consumption. She writes, "I remember those catechisings when she used to, Aunt Hattie, used to place my little cousin Mary and myself bolt upright at her knee, while Black Dinah and Harvey the bound boy were ranged at a respectful distance behind us. For Aunt Harriet always impressed it upon her servants to order themselves lowly and reverently to all their betters. A portion of the church catechism which has always pleased me, particularly when applied to them, as it ensured their calling me Miss Harriet, in treating me with a degree of consideration which I never enjoyed in a more democratic circle at home." In this quote from Harriet Beecher Stowe, in the reference to two people of African descent, in further reference to Uncle Justin, a slave owner, gifting two slaves to Aunt Hattie, and realizing that slavery was not only present in Guilford, but was part of the fabric of the community, really opened my mind to what slavery might look like here in Guilford, Connecticut. So looking at the monument on the green, you can begin to understand the horrific sacrifices that were made, with the understanding that if you take over 60 men who died in the Civil War and you extrapolate that number to the population of Guilford today, you would have over 600 deaths, and you can understand the enormity of the sacrifice. So how could these men sacrifice and die to end slavery when many of their families were slaveholders and profited from slavery a generation or two before? How could Harriet Beecher Stowe write the book that helped end slavery when she benefited and found pleasure in it as a child? How can we explain the abolitionist soldiers from Guilford who fought to end slavery? And why did William Henry Wright, the grandson of a slave, fight to end slavery, but also fight for a town and a state and a country that benefited from slavery for well over a century until it turned away from the profits of a captive workforce? These are some of the questions we will try to answer.